This is the Unstarving Musicians Podcast. The podcast features conversations with musicians and music industry professionals, all intended to help musicians be better at marketing, business, the creative process, and all the other things that empower us to do more of what we love, make music. Hey, it's your host, Robonzo. Thank you for tuning in. If you are an indie music artist or fan, you're in the right place. Whoever you are, I appreciate you. As a gigging musician and fan of live music, I'm committed to sharing my personal experience, including everything I'm learning from other artists and music industry professionals on this podcast. If you'd like to be privy to all of my learnings, pop over to unstarvingmusician.com and join the community. You'll get an email from me, usually weekly, with tips, insights, and secrets intended to make your music journey a little better and brighter. I'll never send you anything spammy, and you can unsubscribe at any time. Right. It's been a recommended to me by singer-songwriter Tom Meany kind of month. Tom was featured in a prior recent episode, in case you're wondering, and he's done it again. He's recommended someone else to me. This episode is especially interesting, though. Amy S Killingsworth founded and co-manages Amy and Gary's House Concerts of San Antonio. As you may have heard or read as of late, I'm fascinated with house concerts, and this particular conversation was an opportunity to get the host perspective on the whole thing, which makes perfect sense to me. But anytime I do something a little different on the podcast, I get a little anxious. In this case, I'm not speaking with a music artist, which I've done before, but speaking to music artists are definitely my comfort zone. Pesky comfort zone. Amy did not disappoint, however. She was not only an easy-to-interview person, but she's just generally easy to talk to. She was a wealth of information, and I did my best to cover the host, artist, and fan perspectives in our conversation. I think you're going to find Amy's perspective very informative. She is a determined doer of good things and a gift to the music community at large. Here's me and Amy Killingsworth. Amy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and thank you for coming on. I gathered in the days leading up to this that this isn't something you do all the time, so I appreciate it because I don't know how nervous you were, but I was telling my wife, I'm getting a sense she's a little nervous, and I'm trying hard to put her at ease, so anyway.
You did a good job because I'm talking to you. I'm here. That's a good thing.
Yes, and for those listening, Amy told me before we pressed record that she decided she would just embrace the new and try this out and see how it goes, so we're lucky to have you. As I mentioned, also before we pressed record, Tom Meany, who I gathered has been a featured artist at Amy and Gary's House Concerts, had suggested that I reach out to you. He, as I was mentioning, is such an advocate of house concerts and calls himself an ambassador for house concerts, so that's why we're talking today. You have also hosted a Prim show, is that right?
Yes, I have.
Have you by chance heard the episode he was in?
No, I haven't, not yet.
You were going to say?
Well, yes, I have. He's been here every year that we've been doing concerts.
That's cool. I'd have to go back and listen for sure, but he had a pretty funny story that I believe was about performing at your venue, and he had nothing but great things to say about it, but I think you'll get a kick out of his little story. So
it had to have been the storm.
No, probably
not that
probably
one.
Not what you think, and maybe he's never even shared it with you, but you'll get a chance to listen to it. I'll make sure to send you that.
Okay.
And for those of you who are listening, I'll put all this stuff in the show notes that we talk about that is not painfully obvious where to find. So it looks like, Amy, that the first house concert that you and Gary hosted was in April of 2016. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
You've hit about 25 or 26 now?
We are scheduled to have our 25th this month, July 21st, will be our silver.
I was about to ask if that's kind of exciting.
Yes, it is.
Anything special planned other than another great artist?
Well, Lisa Sanders and Brown Sugar are coming back from San Diego. They've become friends, and so it's a multi-celebration of having them here. A lot of the regulars are coming. They haven't missed one of theirs yet. So we've got friends coming in from Oklahoma, from Houston, Louisiana for this concert. So it's going to be a good one.
Are you from Oklahoma originally?
Yes, I am.
How about
Southeastern
Gary?
Oklahoma. Gary is from East Texas, and we joke and say that he's really from Oklahoma. It's just the Red River separates it.
The Texas side, right?
Yes.
There's a great blues song that I've only heard in a movie called 10 Days Out. That's a documentary film, which I very much enjoyed, but there was an artist there who had a song that says he was born in Louisiana on the Texas side. which I thought was kind of
Yes.
cute. When did you meet? How did you meet, you and Gary?
Well, first, we just celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary.
That's exciting.
Yes, it is. And we met in Houston. I was involved in the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. And one of my good friends that was on a committee with me, she wanted me married. I was a single mom and she thought I needed to be married. And she kept looking and finally she found Gary and a blind date. And we've been together ever since.
Wow, blind dates do work sometimes, huh?
Yes, they do.
Well, you met the old-fashioned way too, like me and my wife. We have just celebrated our 24th, wait, oh my gosh, get it right, 20th anniversary, 25 years together. Whew, I think I got that right. But I always tell people we met the old-fashioned way at a bar, at a college
Oh,
bar.
yes. Well, we had a discussion about that yesterday, having drinks with friends. So,
That's funny. So, 20, almost 25 shows later, what on earth got the two of you interested in doing house concerts?
well, number one, we like to entertain. We design our houses for entertainment. And we had actually gone out to San Diego. And before we left, I had been watching Audience and Jason Mraz. It was his episode. And they were talking about where he got his start. And he said, well, Java Joe's, a little coffee house in San Diego. And I thought, well, we're going. We need to go to this place. So I called, and Joe actually answered the phone, and I made our reservations, paid our entry, our admission fee, and we went. And I have to say, we were not expecting the level of artists that were there. I don't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting what we saw. And it was singer songwriter night. And the Lovebirds were there, which was Lindsay White and Veronica May. And then Lisa Sanders and Karen Brown Sugar Hayes were there. And Emmy Law was there and a few others. And so we went, and I have to say, I was starstruck. I couldn't even talk. So we came home, and I became Facebook friends with Lindsay and of the Lovebirds. And she had posted that they needed a gig in Texas because they had one gig, but they needed another gig to make it worth their while, to come out from San Diego. And so it was late. And I know Gary and he was already asleep. And I kind of elbowed him and I said, I want to have this thing called a house concert. And my husband I am spoiled. And so Gary being Gary, he goes, well, okay, just figure out what we need to do. So I sent Lindsay a message. It says, we've never had one, never been to one, but we'll do it. If you're willing to take a chance on us, we'll do it. And she said, yes, of course, yes. And so she told us where she and Veronica were playing about 3 weeks before our concert was going to be happening. So we went up and went to that concert at the Goldens, and they are phenomenal. Judy Golden and her house concert, she has one of the best that I've been to. But we went up to that, and kind of Judy gave me the ins and outs on how she does it. And I was grateful for that. And I still do a lot of the ideas that she gave me. So then we had it on, I think it was April 2nd was when we had the Lovebirds here.
Good story. I kind of figured it was something a little like this. It just happened all of a sudden. So the Java Joe's, that is actually a coffee house, but they do something that reminds you of a house concert vibe. I can see that they're, just looking them up online, they're very much foster live music. What was it about that venue that got you?
I think it was so quaint. It was warm. And I know a lot of people would say, really? But it was. It was very friendly. The fact that you could talk to the artist. And for us, Gary and I have been to a lot of concerts, but you always there's security there that are stopping you from going and saying hello. And at this venue, you can say hello. You can get in a conversation. And that's something that with the house concerts, there are many reasons that we wanted to do these. But one of the draws, and what I've heard from my audience and what I really let them know is, you're going to get to meet these artists. You're going to get to talk to them. You're going to get to eat dinner with them because we have a potluck at all of our concerts. So we saw Hall & Oates at the Woodlands, Cynthia Woods Amphitheater in the Woodlands. And I was sitting there with Gary and I said, now see, if Hall & Oates was at our house doing a house concert. All of our guests would get to talk to him. But these guys in green are not going to let us backstage. And Gary goes, "You're right, Amy, you're right." And I said, "Well, that's why we have house concerts."
Does he wonder sometimes why you're still doing them?
He's a typical husband. I'm not going to say he complains, but he's like, "Amy, now only one a month." And I'll say, "Okay." But then say somebody comes in and they really need a gig to help buy gas. And so I'll say, "Well, I can't guarantee anything, but yeah, we'll have it." So I'll send Gary a message saying, "I know we've got this one on this date, but I just booked this one for this date." And he's like, "Okay." And that's it. And we do it.
That's funny. What's the most you've done in a month to date?
Just 2.
Yeah. I didn't want to get you in trouble there for people that are listening. Oh, she does at least 2 a month.
No, 2 is the max. And I would do them every weekend if we could. In fact, Gary and I had looked into having a venue, and that's still in the future for us, I hope. But it's hard for people to commit to coming every weekend. And that's the only reason why we don't have them every weekend, is even our regulars are like, "I mean, we want to come, but we've got this family obligation or something." So once a month seems to work out for us good and for our audience.
Has the audience base, well, how much has it grown since you first started? And I assume that it has, and that helps to ensure that you have great attendance.
It has grown. When we first started doing this and I started reading, I mean, I'm a researcher, so I started Googling house concerts and reading everything that I could find on it. And the one common thing that I read was that it was hard to get, that you could not count on people to come every month. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
You didn't want to wear them out. And so I thought, okay, because people say, you can only ask your neighbors to come so much. And I thought, okay, then that means that I need to go past my neighbors. That means that I need to find other avenues and to get people here. And so right now, when we have a show, when we have a concert, I have, let me count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9 places that I announce them, where I don't just have like one email goes out. There's a called Concerts in Your Home. That's a website I announce on that. I have 2 meetups, which is another app.
Why 2?
Why 2? Because I have 3 meetup groups. The first one is Amy and Gary's house concerts. The second one is I got in with another group on Meetup, and they said, will you announce your concerts on our Meetup also? And I said, yes. Then I also started a Meetup group that's called Learn How to Have a House Concert that I teach so that other people can do this.
Is that an in-person, like come to my
Yes.
home? And oh, cool.
And then, of course, we have our Facebook. And then there's another app called Nextdoor. And then there's the email MailChimp. And then the Evite is good. And then there's Bands in Town.
It's funny, I Googled Amy and Gary's concerts, of course. And I saw many of these, and I wondered if some of it was kind of organic and happened around you, and wondered how that felt. But you've been very proactive to help ensure that you have a monthly audience, which is pretty cool.
Well, I have to. That's the only way my artists make money. And that's what it's all about.
That's so motherly of you.
I have been told that a lot, that I'm a very nurturing person, and I take care of them. I try, because this is how they want to make their living. And nowadays, with everything being like it is, the creative, artistic stuff, it's not getting the attention it needs, in the schools and stuff. When I went to school, I was in choir, everything. And nowadays, schools just aren't doing that. So any way to help these artists and promote them, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do everything I can.
That's very cool. Now,
this is just for Gary and I, for our own curiosity. But one of the things when we start the evening, we ask, how many, is this your first concert? How many have, is this? And I would say normally we have half of the people, it's their first one.
That's interesting.
It is, and it's good. At first I thought, well, what happened to the other half? But it's growing. And right now on one of my email lists, I think we have about 400.
Do you have multiple lists, or is kind of 400 is the current?
I have multiple lists, but I say the multiple list are through the other apps also. Like there are people on Facebook that aren't on Meetup.
Right.
Some of them overlap, but not very many.
Well, I would think that half of all new attendees being first time listeners is in part a testament to the work that you've put into marketing them to ensure that you have good audiences, because I can see, as you kind of explained to me or hint as to how these are often done, tapping your neighbors as often as you can.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, for having been involved in events of various types, that it's a crowded space no matter what you're hosting. So yeah, you're with all these different channels. I'm sure that has a lot to do with it, and that's actually a really nice thing that you're helping to expose all these people to the joys of the house concert experience.
Mm-hmm. We do enjoy it also.
By the way, you mentioned that you did a lot of research. What would you say is your maybe number one and number two recommended readings or research sources for somebody who wants to host or learn about?
Oh my goodness, it's been so long since I've researched like that. I would say the best thing to do if somebody were is just to get online and Google
Start
it.
searching.
Yeah. And one of the things, because Gary and I go over the top, as I said, I love to entertain. I mean, I have my garage, I have shelves and cabinets full of just entertainment dishes and everything. And so I realized that when I say, if anybody wants to learn how to do this or do this, I will help you. And they've come up to me later and said, Amy, I can't do all that you do. I can't do the fresh flowers. I can't do. And I'm like, no, 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 you don't have to do that. This is what I like to do. You don't even have to have a potluck. It's what you want to do. So the people that have been interested, I tell them, I say, okay, go to different house concerts. Take what you see that you know would work for you and discard what won't work for you. There's no set rules for this. The only thing that I highly recommend, and that is joining the Folk Alliance community, because that helps with your, I think Tom mentioned it, with your royalties, your ASCAP and BMI and like that, because they can only play their own music at a house concert. They can't play covers.
So the Folk Alliance is a great resource for original artists, among other things, I guess.
Yes.
Okay. You and Gary became members, and
Yes, we did.
okay. I'm just learning through interviews with independent artists about the Folk Alliance in recent months. Yeah, so that's interesting to hear about. Everyone that I've talked to who's involved in it up until right now is an artist. We've talked about these showcase things they do and some of the things they learn. So that's interesting. It sounds like you had a really great resource in Judy Golden.
Oh, yes.
Is she in San Antonio?
She's in north of San Antonio. She's on the lake, in Canyon Lake.
Canyon Lake. So she sounds like she was great, and then you just have the demeanor for figuring things out. But was there anything that jumps out as like the biggest learning curve throughout the whole journey that you've been on with them? Or was it just like an extension of your entertaining ways?
Maybe that. I would say that I've learned, I'm a perfectionist, so I've had to learn to let it roll a little bit. I can't think. I mean, every show, it evolves. Every concert evolves. Like there'll be something that will maybe work with one that won't work for another one. But our core basic routine is down. When Gary and I started, it took us all day to set up. And now, if it's just he and I, which is what we kind of prefer, there's a few that come in and can help us because they know how we work, but we can be set up for a concert in 2 hours. And the joke is Gary wanted a Harley, and he didn't have any business having a Harley, but he wanted one, a motorcycle. And I said, I tell you what, we need sound equipment really bad. So why don't you go get sound equipment instead of a Harley? And I'm thinking, and that's going to be a lot less money on us, down the road. So he researched. So we now have our own sound equipment.
When you started, were the artists bringing their own gear in?
No, we were very fortunate when we went to Judy Golden's, to the Golden's home. For the Lovebirds, there was a gentleman named Alan Moore that came up to us and he goes, do you have sound? And I looked at him and I said, do I need sound? Because literally, we had never seen a house concert. We had no idea what we needed. And he said, well, it's good. And I said, we don't have any. Do I rent it? What do I do? And he goes, well, you know what? I've got some. I'll bring my sound. And he brought his sound equipment for a year. And then we decided, because he's also a musician, and Gary said, Amy, one of these days, Alan's going to have another gig and we're going to be stuck out. And that was another reason for getting the sound equipment. So now when Alan does have another gig, then Gary runs the sound. And when Alan doesn't have another gig, then Alan comes and runs our sound. And we also take our sound, like the Andersons, Stacy and Pat Anderson, they've started having them also, and they are regulars that come to ours. And so we take our sound equipment and our chairs, we just kind of produce it. We just take it over to them, to their house, and just set everything up, and they have theirs. It just makes it a lot easier. And again, anything that we can do to help these people start having house concerts, we're going to do, because it just helps the artist. And that's the bottom line. That's why we do it.
Yeah, sounds like it. That's great. Tell me about the autograph beam in your home.
Oh, well, I am a firm believer that where there's a will, there's a way. And if you can't find the way, your will's just not strong enough yet. And when the Lovebirds were coming, I needed more floor space. And I knew I needed more floor space. And so we knocked out a wall. And when we knocked out a wall, we realized that part of that wall was holding up the upstairs. So my husband is very resourceful and he does no construction. So he jacked everything up, put the 2x4s under, and said, Amy, we've got to shore this up. And I said, okay. And he goes, well, we're going to have columns. I said, I hate columns. And he goes, well, we're going to have to. I said, don't worry about it. I'll find somebody that can do it. And sure enough, I found a man, Tommy Lamb, and he came in and he goes, about the only thing we can do, Amy, is put a beam in there. And I think it's a 6x6 square. I don't know the construction term for it, but it's a steel beam. It is a 6x6 square beam that goes across part of our house. And it was supposed to be covered in sheetrock and no column, because this beam will hold up the upstairs. I said, no, I like the industrial look. Leave it. And what ended up happening was I was sitting there looking at it and I thought, oh, they could start signing that. That's how it started. The Lovebirds were the first ones to sign the beam. And now we've done one side. Now we've started on the second side. And the thing is the home that we're in now isn't our forever home. I want to build something. And the joke is the beam's going. And it will go. I'll find a way for it to go.
Yeah, I had not heard the story behind it. So Lovebirds are coming, you need more floor space, you knock out a wall.
Mm-hmm.
What was the floor space like by the time they got there? Well, the real question is, was it finished space?
No. No. The beam was up, but we had up until about my husband fixed it. Our renewal, we did a renewal here on June 2nd. So he actually patched where the wall was about a month and a half ago. We had just where the wall was, like a 12-inch wide by 10 feet, just nothing there. But thank goodness the people that come to our home, they come to hear music and not to look at my house. So.
Well, I've heard it's a great place. And I've seen some pictures. The funny thing is I didn't zoom in on it, but I saw the beam and I was like, oh, there's the beam. But, I mean, it stood out a little bit in the picture, but not like you've described it.
Well, I've got a lot of pictures that I need to post of everybody signing, of them signing. Like, we've had some pretty great artists come through here from California. We've had Peter Case come, and he was founder of the Plimsolls and the Nerves. He has become a friend, and that's what's so wonderful about what we do. And one of the things that I enjoy so much is, as I said, when we went to Java Joe's, I was starstruck. Lisa Sanders told me she liked my shirt, and I couldn't even respond. And now we're friends. And I think that's what a lot of people, that once they get into and they start coming and they start getting involved, they see that these artists, yes, they have CDs out. Yes, they're on the radio. They're people, and they're nice people. And they appreciate being able to play for people that appreciate their talent. And I wouldn't change it. If we could do this all the time, we would. As far as, like I said, if we could do it every weekend, we would.
And the feedback I've gotten from the artists I've spoken with has been really positive in terms of their experience because it's the way these are set up. They're audiences that are focused on the music, and they really also enjoy, the artists themselves really enjoy the opportunity to connect with fans.
Mm-hmm.
I've been told multiple times it's also a great way for them to develop their fan base and help also nurture the house concert community by entertaining the idea of others hosting them that they meet at the various shows. Sounds like a great ecosystem. Have you had, I'm guessing not, but if you have, great, I'd love to hear them. So I'll sort of ask this question a couple of ways, but have you had any recurring challenges or challenges that stick out? And I may have kind of already asked this, but I'm also curious to know, have you, in your dealings with other house concert hosts, do you hear of a common challenge or does it vary?
I don't want to sound negative. I would say one of the challenges is getting people to come, and we have a good turnout every time. But what I think some don't understand as far as the guest is that if they don't come and they say they're going to, that's money out of the artist's pocket. That's a challenge, is trying to make sure that these people that say they're going to come, that they actually do. And if they're not going to let me know so that I can fill that seat with somebody that can come. Because sometimes we're on a wait list. And that's one of the challenges. I haven't had that too much. And then there's also things that just life happens and people just can't come. When we first started, it was real hard for us not to take that as a personal thing. Like, well, they didn't show up. Why not? And now we just kind of roll with it. It's, I don't know, like with any event where you're supposed to RSVP, you have a percentage that aren't going to be able to make it, and you just have to go with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing I've heard, we are a listening room, so people don't talk. I've only had to shush one person, and that was Gary. And that's something that we're all, I think all house concert hosts are very aware that no talking during the show because it interrupts the people that did come there to listen to the music. And singer-songwriters, the lyrics, I mean, that's what you're there. They tell a story and you want to be able to hear the story. So as I said, I've only had to shush one, and that was Gary, and he doesn't do that anymore.
This may have no practical value at all, but it reminds me, my wife and I live in Panama for the last couple of years, and it's a different culture in a lot of different ways, as you might imagine. And one day we were, during our saga, our odyssey, there's a great word, during our odyssey of getting our driver's license, a Panamanian driver's license, we were at a government or a municipal office in Panama City, and we had to stop into a bank to do part of the payment stuff. And they had an employee there who, I'm trying to remember if the etiquette inside the bank was that no cell phone usage or no texting, or it was almost like no talking, but the employee came over with like a yellow card, like in soccer, I guess, or some sporting event where you get carded. You get this card come out for a penalty. And I'm trying to remember, I think he had a card on a stick, like with a little sign. So he comes up and politely, with a smile on his face, holds it up in front of the patron to remind him that whatever he was doing was not permitted. And it was all kind of amusing. But I was just sitting here imagining the fun and potential humor of you having such a card on a stick to put.
Did you know they do have them?
Really?
At Dripping Springs, they have a songwriting festival in October, and we went for the first time last year, and they have volunteers that's what they're there for. And they're like fans, hand fans, but it says, remember, this is a listening room. Be quiet. And they will walk around to remind everybody that it's show respect. And that's what it is. Bottom line is just showing respect for the musicians.
Is Dripping Springs, I've heard of this place before. Are they a public venue or is it a house concert venue?
It is a town.
Thank you.
And it's in between Wimberley and basically Austin, but it's a little bit west. And for a weekend, they have singer-songwriters that are there performing and showcases. It's a fun time. And it's free.
What is the event?
It's Dripping Springs Singer-Songwriter, I think. Songwriting Festival.
Okay. I've probably heard of it in this exact context, and it would make sense that that's what I had, but I could not remember. So, yeah, thanks. I'll have to check that out.
And Tom Meany is the one that told us about it. And since we found out about it, we haven't missed yet. So, in fact,
It's an annual thing?
it is. We just got our room, in fact, so we don't have to drive back and forth. It's here it is, Dripping Springs Songwriters Festival 2018.
I will check that out. What advice, if any, do you have for any of the following, or all of them if you do, but for artists, music fans, and or aspiring house concert hosts?
For the host, don't be intimidated by doing it. Just do it. Like I said, there's no right or wrong. The main thing you have to know is that you're there to make sure that they make some money, that these artists make money, so that they can keep pursuing their career. And just what do they say? Lean into it, just enjoy it. And do not be intimidated by thinking you could do it wrong, because there is two groups in our area. Scott Witt had started a Texas host Facebook page, and he's in Fulshire. He has a phenomenal house concert, just phenomenal. And he has them quite a bit. He has them more than we do. And then there's also Stallion Springs, which is up north of San Antonio. Now, Stallion Springs, it's Rob McDonald. He does his outside. And then Scott does his indoors, and we do ours both. We just had decks built, so we do ours in and out depending on the weather. And we all do them a little bit different. Elaine Hayden, she's been doing them for quite a while. She has New Braunfels house concerts. And where we have the doors open at 6, the potluck starts at 6 and runs to like 6:55, and the show starts at 7. Well, Elaine does hers on Sundays. We try to only do ours on Saturday evenings, but she does hers on Sundays, and so does Scott. And Elaine has her potluck in the middle. They'll do a 45-minute set, and then they have potluck, and then she does the remaining 45-minute set. And so it's whatever you feel. Like I tell everybody, go to different ones, take the things that you think, oh, that is so cool, and do it. And the things that you think, well, that's cool, but that wouldn't work at my place, then it's okay. Don't do that. I have a list. Judy Golden told me, she goes, Amy, you need a list. So I like to have a list so that I know who comes and I can check them off. I have one of my friends is usually running the door, so to speak. I have a bird cage that they can put their money in, and then we check them off and they go on in. And there are some that they just pass a bowl around and you just put whatever you want in there, because it has to be a suggested donation. It can't be a quote ticket. And I don't know all the rules behind that. I think it has to do with BMI and ASCAP and all that. And I'm not even sure about that.
That's my understanding, but
yeah, but everything that I put out there, I have to put suggested donation and then also private house concert. Like I can't make it a big public thing. And a lot of it's the wording. You just have to watch how you word this stuff.
I guess that is good reason, as Tom Meany has alluded to do a little reading, talk to some people, go to some shows.
Yeah, Tom Meany and Jamie Harris and Brian Patterson, they were our second concert that we had gone to before we had ours. And it was at Broken Oak, which Paula has a phenomenal, or she did, she's moved, but it was on a little waterway and it was like an amphitheater. It was so nice. And it was at night. It was really a pretty venue. And I missed a lot of it because it was outside and I had a bird that decided I needed to be its bathroom twice.
Oh.
So I had to go in twice and wash my shirt off. But even with that, they say, Amy, that was just good luck. That's a good luck thing. But that's when we met Tom and Jamie. And in fact, Tom wrote a song, Say When, and I didn't hear it the first time. Gary heard it, and he actually came and sung it at our 25th wedding renewal for us. So
that's nice.
Needless to say, he has become a very good friend also.
That is wonderful.
When we get, and this is something more for the artist, I get an average of 5 to 10 emails a week from artists wanting to play here. And when you only have roughly 12 a year, that makes it really tough to pick. And what I've noticed, like through my looking at these emails, the one thing, and I work with other artists to try to help them book gigs and stuff. And one thing that I look for is a good video of them at a house concert to see how their show's going to go. Because you can hear their CD. Well, that's not live, that's out of a studio. And then you can see videos of an actual like music video. Well, that's all choreographed. So, one thing that I love seeing is when someone has done a very good job of videoing part of one of their house concerts, because that will show me what I can expect and what my guests can expect from this artist. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious to know the house concert videos I have seen, which have not been, there's not been a ton of them, but I've seen a few, and they're generally single angle. I'm
Yes.
imagining that you get single camera, not necessarily like the super highest quality, but you can mostly a video that you can see and hear what was going on in the room. Is that accurate?
Yes, like I do live a lot. Now, that I would not use one of mine to send to a potential house concert host. To me, an artist should invest as much as they can on actually just a little tidbit of somebody that actually is good at videoing, that has the proper equipment to attach to a press kit or to what they're going to be sending out with the stories. Because a lot of people that go to house concerts, they don't, when they're first, they go, oh, we didn't know they'd talk. And I'm like, yeah, usually you hear how that song came to be. You hear the backstory of it. And that's part of the fun. And something else I always ask, I try to always make sure and get permission from the artist, the musician, to live video. Because sometimes they don't want to. They don't want you to. And sometimes it's like, oh, yeah, do all you want, do the whole show. So we always try to ask first before we do live streaming, and then we'll announce, okay, no live streaming on this show, or you can take photographs, but no videoing, or if you video, you can do it when you get home, post it, but don't post it while you're here. And as I said, some are sure, do the whole thing.
Okay. From your perspective, when you do them, it is to help in part at least, or maybe in large part, to market your own
Yes.
house concerts. For artists that are listening who are still figuring the house concert scene out or trying to, Ray Prim said it's kind of like the Illuminati trying to figure out how to get in. But for any of them who are trying to figure it out, is it safe to say that a video that they attach to their press kit, in this case, a live video of a house concert performance, doesn't have to be super, super high quality, just needs to be a decent video and can be a single angle thing, right? It doesn't have to be a big production thing.
No, just the sound needs to be good.
Okay.
The sound needs to be good. I know I've seen a lot. I've gotten some that it's of being in a bar and you can't hear. You can't hear the song because the talking is so bad. And that's something that I really look for because, as I said, videos, music videos, they're choreographed. They're all sound. It's a professional thing. So I think, well, are you going to be that good live without? And then also, it's real hard for house concert hosts to have a full band. I've wanted to. I've tried to convince Gary that we could do that. And now I even have my musician saying, no, Amy, you can't have drums in your house. It's just too much. And so when I get them and it's a full band, I don't know what are they going to bring to my house because I can't have the full band. I can have a cajon. I can have a few pieces. Ray brought a violinist, which was phenomenal, but a full band won't work. So you always need to present what you're going to actually be bringing to them. This is what I'm going to offer. This is what I have for you.
Here's a question for you for an artist who hasn't done a house concert but feels like they've got it down. They've maybe played a lot of acoustic gigs at maybe wineries or coffee shops. If you got a video from someone like that that said, Amy, this is not an actual house concert, it's my place, or it is kind of, but it's my place, it was staged especially for this video, there is an audience here, these are all people that we know, but it's what we wanted to give you, this is what we think it's going to be like. And if there was a dozen people in this video and they did a caliber with the sound that you would normally expect, what would your...
It'd be perfect.
Yeah, okay.
Perfect. That's what I'd need to see. That would work. That would be perfect.
All right, those of you wanting to play house concerts and you haven't yet, that's probably some of the best advice we have for you.
It really, I mean, it is, because there's a lot of people that have, and the other thing, I know we're getting kind of on more of the musician side of it, but persistence and nice. I know Brian Pounds, he would send every week, he would send me an email, and it wasn't a canned email. It wasn't where it's kind of like getting a letter and they just fill in the first name. It's not a letter to you. It's just a sample. What do they call those? Like a distribution.
Template.
Yeah, thank you. And Brian he was just every email. It wasn't a long one, but it was just very personal. In fact, I've booked him like 3 times. Not with us, but with other places, like they'll now, because people will call me, they'll be having parties or something. They'll say, Amy, who do you know? And I'll say, okay, well, I can give. In fact, I just booked somebody in California because a friend of mine in California reached out and she goes, we want to have a house concert. Do you know anybody out here? And I said, yeah, let me send you these 3 artists and you decide. And so it's booked.
Dang, that's an aspect I never even thought of. So when you meet an Amy Killingsworth, did I say your name right? Killingworth. It's
Yes,
not with
Killingsworth with an S. Oh, yes.
Oh, your
It's the
caller
long one.
ID's wrong.
Oh, what does it? Oh, really?
Oh, you know what? That's me. That's my side. I misspelled you in my contacts. Anyway, I digress. So those of you that know someone like an Amy Killingsworth, was Brian Pound, was that the gentleman's name we were just talking about?
Yes, Brian Pounds. He was actually on The Voice, and he was on Blake Shelton's team.
I'll be darned. We'll take Brian Pounds' lead because look at what it did for him, even though, if I heard you right, you haven't even booked him at your place yet, but because of your network, he's the result of his communication to you, his kind, professional, persistent communication has gotten him 2 or 3 other gigs.
Well, he's very, very good. He's touring right now, so he's very good. But just the way he interacted.
Yeah.
I tell you, when I get an email that I can tell that it's just fill in the blanks, I just like, okay. Because I'm a type person, I'd rather have 5 very good friends than 1,000 acquaintances. And as my husband says, I'm loyal. I mean, he says this, and I'm like, okay, watch it, Gary. Like, I'm an old dog. He goes, you're loyal like an old dog. He's like, Amy, once they're under your wing, pity anybody that tries to do anything, because you're going to protect them. You're going to help them all you can. And I really try to. I love it. I love this business. I love doing house concerts. I love helping these artists.
Well, Amy, this has been a great conversation for me. I know it's going to be a great listen for artists, people who either host house concerts or have been thinking about it like myself. Thank you so much for spending time with me. I will definitely stay in touch.
Oh, please do. We'll probably hang up and I'll think, I should have told him this and this and this. So I'll make a list.
That's okay. You know where to find me now.
Yes.
All right. Well, great talking with you.
You too, and thank you for having me on.
My pleasure. Hey, thanks again for listening. The Unstarving Musicians podcast is edited for sound and content quality by Juan Perez. The intro-outro music is Alarm Clocks, written and performed by Redwood. That's me on drums. Visit unstarvingmusician.com/podcast to find more episodes like this one. And please consider supporting the podcast by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. This episode was powered by the Unstarving Musician's Guide to Getting Paid Gigs, how to get booked and paid what you're worth over and over again, available on Amazon and Kobo.com. The book is also available as a standalone podcast called the Unstarving Musician's Guide podcast. You can also learn more about the book and companion podcast at unstarvingmusician.com/book. I'd love it if you picked up a copy, and I'd love it even more if you left a review. With much gratitude, peace, love, and more cowbell.